Hi everyone, welcome to Ridge Journal's first episode of #NoFilter. My name is Josh Lloyd, and I'm talking today with the lead animator from Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Josh Beveridge. How are you doing today, Josh?
Doing well. Feeling great. I've been on vacation since, so well rested now.
Congratulations on your Oscar.
Thank you. I mean, the movie won the Oscar. I didn't get to take the Golden Guy home myself, but we're pretty proud.
I know, I've got a college roommate who was on the team too, and I kept looking for him on the stage, and he wasn't there.
Yeah. There was I think the final tally folks have been saying has been there 800 artists worked on this movie.
And that's a point I really want to get to with you, because part of what I do at Ridge Journal is we're empowering creative industry in Western North Carolina, specifically in Western North Carolina. And a lot of what the work we're doing is we're changing the mindset of the people who work in media here. A lot of the people here are commercial based, and they're singular. They don't work with other people often. They just kind of go off and do contract work. It's private and freelance, and it's not a large conglomerate group of people working on any given project. When we get in that situation now in 2019, I'm seeing that we are in a surplus of creative professionals, and we're in a deficit of creative jobs. And we need to find a way to create a unique environment where we're all working together, much like you did on Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. We're working really hard to make this happen. I wanted to talk with you about your journey from growing up. I believe you grew up in Nashville, am I right?
Yeah. I was born in Sarasota, Florida, but raised most of my childhood in Asheville. Graduated from Asheville High.
You did, okay. And so, let's go back to that point. When did you decide to become an animator to begin with?
I think that realization dawned on me late in life. It was I always knew I wanted to be an artist. As a kid, I just scribbled and painted everything. Every time I could get my hands on something that made marks, I was doing it. And then my family, my parents were incredibly nurturing of that. They convinced me everything I did was wonderful. As a kid, that everything I ever made was put on the fridge and touted around for guests in our home. So they kind of convinced me I had talent and encouraged me to go to school. I originally thought I'd be a painter. I think I just lived in a home with lots of books on Renaissance artists, so I had my head stuck in the Renaissance era, and it wasn't until I started really thinking about a practical life and it was thinking about colleges that I saw that there was such a thing as an animation program. And that was really the first time I realized that was a job at all. Movies had always been a passion of mine, but they were like a guilty pleasure, I thought. They were this thing I thought was like, I don't know, playing video games or a guilty pleasure, for lack of a better word. And it wasn't until animation I realized that I could make pictures I was making move, and it really made sense I'd have to go to college for that, because I had absolutely no idea where to even begin making that. I'd never sent an email in my life, so computer animation seemed like a pretty daunting task.
Yeah, I went to UNC Greensboro's film school, and I took several animation courses, and I fell in love with it myself. I worked I do a lot of logos things and lower third graphics and stuff like that. And I find myself at my highest level of pleasure in the profession when I'm animating.
Right. There's this kind of, for lack of a better word, bliss where you lose track of time, and you're not aware of how long you've been working because you're so focused and in it. Like you're not that. And animation and timing is such a myopic thing, and it's elastic while you're working in it too. That it's a good and bad thing, but it's that showed me how much I really loved it, because I could just completely get lost in it.
Yeah, I think the hippies here in Nashville call that a flow state.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, do you miss Asheville? I mean, tell me.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think I had that rebellious thing where I could not wait to get as far as possible, because that's just like a teenage angst thing where, like, as soon as you can, you just want to see the world, and and then now when I go back and visit, I realize just how beautiful the city was and how charming life is there. And I regret not being able to get there more often now. I feel like I grew up in a storybook. It's so green and lush and full of life.
Well, you really did. I mean, many stories were written about this area. It's
Yeah.
kind of crazy. I'm trying to figure out where to go from here, but it looks to me like you started around the same time I did. When I go back into your IMDb page, it looks like you worked on some really major films. Your first film was The Chronicles of Narnia.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Like, Jesus, man. Lucky break.
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky. I was really, really lucky. I think it's funny when you reflect back on life and to realize how much of things that worked out in your favor were just you being the right person at the right time, and a string of coincidences. But like, because I graduated that year, I just made a short film that did really well in the student film circuit. It won a student Oscar, a bronze in the student Oscar, and an Emmy and a silver in the student Emmys.
Cool.
That, and it got into SIGGRAPH and the electronic theater. So with the wave of that got me a job before I'd even graduated, so I could start work a week out of school, which I don't think happens very often anymore. It's and it was a really big boom time at the time when I was hiring. Like, there was, I think, I don't want to say this, 14 movies Sony was working on at the same facility all at once, maybe, and Chronicles of Narnia being one of them. So that felt like just an amazing string of luck. And then one of my good buds from school, who just graduated a few years before me, was like my official partnered buddy. They set you up with an official partner, sort of like they get you comfortable with the studio and chaperone you around. And that was Patrick Osborne, and he's been doing great in his career since. And he was really great, straightforward person to be honest with early on.
Yeah. Let's go through your work a little bit. I mean, I'm looking here. I see several very popular animations. Surf's Up, Open Season, but then you moved into I Am Legend. You even did work on Speed Racer, Chronicles of Narnia 2. But of all the films you've made or been a part of making, which one stands out the most to you?
I mean, well, you lived for so long with a lot of these that you end up learning a lot of lessons. I think there is a big, when you reflect back, there's a big chunk of information you walk away from each type. We're working with different directors, exposes you different styles, and I'm really happy that Sony is one of those companies. I've been in the same company but worked on such diverse work because we do both. We do the live action monster superhero films, and we also do the really fun squishy cartoons, and that switching gears like that keeps you on your toes and mentally sharp, and each one sort of ends up influencing the other. On Narnia, that was my first exposure to the industry at all. So just learning the whole process of how you receive notes and how to take feedback and what to work on. And most of the kind of work I was doing then was the beavers listening in the background. So you learn to just make characters pay attention and think to be alive without being distracting. Which is a harder task than you'd expect it to be, but it's not like the glory work everyone fights for. But that was a really great foundation. I think I got lucky to do a lot of. And then Surf's Up was I think that was really where I started learning how important acting was. Like, early on in your career, you're just focusing on making things move convincingly and not be weird.
Yeah.
But Surf's Up, we really dove into, and were forced to dive into, thought process and how much people rarely say out loud what they're actually going through. And since it's all penguins, you have such little to control and emote with. It's all in their eyes and where their attention is. And every character, we were specific about their relationship to the camera and who looked where when, and the shaping of lids, meaning wildly different things. That was a amazing follow-up, just to really drill in that fundamental. And then I think another big realization to explore was Cloud the Chance of Meatballs. The first one of those was the first time I was realizing that movement could be a conceptual thing, that it's the way something moves is another artistic tool to control. It's not just, again, not just describing reality and not just doing the way things would move, or that less and more, dialing that control really gives you this sort of conceptual precision that you can't get from any other medium.
Yeah. Um, it, it's crazy to think about all the stuff that you've been doing. What's the most difficult part or the most difficult process of animating in general? And when you just mentioned, there's certain things that everyone fights for, certain projects on a film. Which parts of the animation do people really want to be a part of?
Well, I mean, I think early on, the glory shots are often considered the ones that are the most like dramatic, long shots, like, where it's just like a close up on a character. They're going through some sort of tragedy in their life, and it's just a long shot. I think people, while they're building up their reel, really, really focus on and prioritize length. I think that's a mistake. Personally, I think that there's a lot more to be learned from those problem-solving. Only in animation, how could you ever solve? How could you do this in any other medium? Things that rely on all of your skills, not just acting. But I think like once people are early in their professional career and they've got at least a handle on physics and making things not look weird, the next goal most folks focus on is acting, and you could spend your entire life delving in that. And it is a beautiful thing, but I think it almost gets too much priority, personally. So I always get excited when someone asks me for shots that are like the weird outliers that aren't what just because it's long.
Yeah. When it comes to live action content, like I Am Legend or something like that, how do you intermix the animation process with actual filmed footage?
So for live action stuff, you learn that like you kind of almost the dirtier you animate, the better it is. You end up moving everything a little bit and making this noise that happens in reality, and it's hard to put your finger on exactly what it is. But if you animate too clean and your poses are too clear and you rely too much on all those things you learn in art school of what a great design composition is, that makes it feel unrealistic.
Yeah.
And you stretch yourself to make it feel like this more like nonchalant is really, really hard. Making something feel casual and comfortable, that's one of the hardest things. Like when there's really clear action, that needs to be described. Those are more straightforward goals, but I think making, like I was saying, the characters just alive and paying attention, and not whenever they don't have to do something specific and you're as an animator choosing what they're doing without it being distracting, that's really, really hard. Like someone just on the phone listening, that's crazy hard to pull off. It's so much like range of subtlety.
Yeah.
And again, if it's too well designed and too perfect and clean, then it doesn't stand up. It doesn't hold up. You have to put in all of this imperfection. But in the more animated world, you love how much you can dive into designing.
Yeah.
It's like the more it looks like an illustration, the better. Often.
Yeah. Well, and that was the case with Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I mean, it was
Yeah.
clearly animated,
Yeah,
and that was the fun part. I really loved seeing the comic book graphics overlaid on top of the actual really clean animation, because you dirtied it up a lot. And I know that before those filters were laid on top, it probably looked really pristine.
Yeah, well, even in the choices, you have to do that. It depends on which scene we're talking about, because the dial is moving one direction or another. Because this movie was really, more so than anything else I worked on, a great combination of both of those aesthetics. It skewed a little bit more mature for the audience, like, and meaning that we got to do more, for lack of a better word, realistic drama.
Yeah.
And really designed moving illustration aesthetic. So it was the kind of the best hybrid of the live action aesthetic and the cartoon aesthetic. We were picking and choosing between those two.
Yeah, you say it was made more for like it was more adult content, but
Well, I wouldn't say adult. It's like it's all audience. We wanted everyone to watch it.
well, I know. Well, the point I'm getting to is that my 20-month-year-old daughter has watched it 3 times.
Awesome.
Yeah, and she can't get enough.
Yeah.
And it's either that or Spirit Riding Free, which is on repeat. So
I think we were just chasing something to make it cool. So it'd be and cool would be for everyone.
yeah, it certainly was. It was gritty and it felt dangerous at
Yeah.
times. I didn't like her watching certain sections.
Yeah,
You
but we didn't want to like alienate your daughter either. It was,
No, you
it was
didn't.
just as much for her.
It was really well done, and she didn't like scream out or have nightmares or anything. You know,
Yeah.
I thought maybe Green Goblin would have done that, but
I think folks have often been too scared of letting the kids get on the roller coaster. It's fun to get scared.
yeah, I think it builds character. So this question might not relate to you because you seem like one of the lucky stars to land a job right out of school. But a lot of people who work in post-production, especially myself, we have starved for someone to represent us. Do you have an agent? Do you work with representation to find new work, or do you just simply let it come to you as it comes?
I mean, I've been really lucky in this regard. I've been with the same company since school, so I've been at Sony in their studio since. So they have several projects, and I've been rolling from one to another. I think that is I know how lucky I am in that regard. So no, there isn't an agent. It's just the project the studio gets.
That's very good. I mean, it seems like a lot of guys on the East Coast bounce from one job to the next, and it's feast or famine.
I think that's becoming that sort of nomadic nature of our industry is becoming more and more ubiquitous. But the ability to work from anywhere is also becoming more liberating too. So, like the art department, people like if they're some of the concept painters worked from home all over the place, and some of the early pre-production work is like that. But the majority of the actual production was done in Vancouver, while we had the directors and myself and some of the team in Culver City in Los Angeles. So we traveled back and forth and had lots of video conferencing, and it's become more and more of an invisible distance.
Yeah, we're just shy of Atlanta. We're 3 hours north, as you know.
Yeah.
And Atlanta has become like a catalyst for change in the Southeast, and it's also a signifier that things are really different now. People are calling Atlanta Hollywood of the East.
Yeah, I've heard that.
And I consider Asheville to be San Rafael or Marin County. Like we're up here in the beauty and it's pristine and the nature of everything up here. And there's so many creatives here. We just want to see we'd love to see maybe not a huge Paramount studio, but like a boutique studio land somewhere in our region. We're trying to change the tax incentive programs in North Carolina to make it easier for studios to step in and work in our state. And that's been a big problem in the past. It's a very expensive buy-in to film in North Carolina and see tax incentive dollars, where in Georgia, it's a fraction of the costs to buy in and make a film.
Right. Yeah, the incentives have changed the landscape a great deal, and they're a shifting target a bit.
Yeah, you might not have to worry about that at all, being that you're in SoCal. But up here, we're all like, we're almost like rallying and getting political about it. We really want it to change in North Carolina so that we can do more. And I feel like independent artists in Louisiana and in Georgia have a better chance of getting to their goal than we do here. And we don't want to move to Georgia. We live in one of the most beautiful places in the world. We want to live right here in Western North Carolina. And it's been very hard for a lot of us to make that happen. I mean, I know I moved out west for 4 years and came back. And
Gotcha.
I think it's going to take several people more influential than me to do the same thing for it to really happen, I think.
Well, I think what we were saying, little by little, it seems like the direction's heading toward eventually folks will be able to live absolutely anywhere, and because there's so many ways to share and communicate now. that didn't used to exist. So I think once security becomes more and more clear and that sort of thing, I think that's eventually going to be the way of the future.
You've been in the game now for what, 20 years? Am I safe to say that?
Coming up on 15, so I would, unless you're counting school.
Yeah, well, okay. I do count that. I do. I think some of our most formative years are when we're in college or just learning in the beginning. What advice do you have for anyone starting out right now on how to not just become a great animator, but to understand the business of filmmaking in general?
Oh, I'm trying to wrap my head around that one myself. I'm not sure if it's wise advice or not, but personally I've been focusing on, I know this isn't wise advice, but I personally focus on just the making, the doing, and I try as much as possible to hope that the rest follows if you're executing your goals. That's probably naive of me, but that's a philosophy I enjoy.
Yeah. I think a lot of guys and girls, I should say, and girls, there are a lot of females out there who are doing great things.
Yeah.
Folks, yeah. There we go. We can't be binary anymore either. I think a lot of people are struggling to understand the film industry as a whole, especially people who can't, people like me who just can't afford to live in LA. It's not that I don't want to live there. I've visited there and had good and bad experiences. It's just that I have a little girl and I'm a family man. I want to work in film, but I also know that I need to be a good man and take care of my family. And so it's a lot of people are in similar situations all over the country. And then on top of that, the colleges and universities are churning out creative professionals by the droves every year. And so we have to find a way to cater to these professionals, and we don't want them to be in a famine situation.
I mean, the good news is that complexity level and the amount of work is we're in a boom right now too. So like I wasn't exaggerating when I said nearly 800 artists worked on this movie. So I spent the majority of a year while Spider-Verse is what I'm talking about. I spent the majority of a year scouring for as many folks that I thought would do great on this project, and we hired a lot of people, and they came from all over the place. And I think that the fact that these schools are making more artists is raising the bar. I think this landscape's changed in a beautiful way where you no longer have to be mentored by the few people that hold this knowledge and have to go to them. You can be anywhere, and it's forced the whole industry to get better. Like our expectations for what average is wildly more rapidly stronger than what it used to be, and because of that, so it does make the work-life balance more challenging, but it pushes the medium and the art form to a greater place faster.
We're trying to find a way to help our creative professionals seek higher ground. That's one of the mainstays of Ridge Journal's platform, and we're looking to create new and unique ways for them to do that. If you happen to come across any opportunities for that, please feel free to shoot me an email. Let me know. I'd love to help these people, even myself, at some point, find opportunities like this. I'm a post-production editor in a lot of cases. I do a lot of 2D animation and a lot of non-linear editing. And I liken that to sticking my head in the sand like an ostrich for weeks.
Yeah. I know that feeling.
And what would happen to me as an independent contractor is I'd have my head in the sand and I would be missing out on all these opportunities that were flying over my head. And I wouldn't have time because I would be, working through an 80-hour project to look up and apply for that job or go and, volunteer for that opportunity on set somewhere. And a lot of jobs would fly right past me. And then I'd step out of the project and I would be like, oh, I finished it. Thank goodness. And then I'd realize that I didn't have anything coming up. And it would take me weeks to find a new project to start on and get paid for. And
Right.
so it would be a hill and valley scenario where I would have money for the time I was on the project. I could feed myself, put clothes on my back. But then when the project was over, I'd be like, oh crap, what am I going to do now? And I'd have to hustle to find a new project or a new
Yeah,
client.
yeah. You do have to wear several hats. Like you have to be present as possible while you're on the project you're on, but also be thinking about the next one. Like always be trying to line up your next project while you're in the current one, and still executing the project you're on to its full potential. It's like like if you compartmentalize too much and don't even think about the next one until you're done with what you're currently on, then you'll end up in that feast and famine thing you're talking about. So it's pretty important to be multitasking mentally that way. And you're asking for advice for people starting out. I think, well, personally, most of the jobs I've ever heard of getting hired are either based on a recommendation or what's actually on the reel, more so than anything else. Like I don't care too much personally about the resume and the breadth of work as much as I do the reel itself. That what you've done and people who've worked with you speaking highly of you is the most invaluable thing.
Yeah.
So getting good feedback and surrounding yourself with people that push you to constantly get better. If everything you are currently working on should be the best thing you've ever done, like ideally.
Yeah, ideally. A lot of times in a private contractor situation, the budget's not there, and you find that your client's causing you to shoestring things together.
Well, but then the goal shifts. Like you can still do, like how excellent can your speed skills be? You can still like that. I've hired a lot of animators that came from video game and television, and the speed that those artists come to the table with is impressive, and that forces everyone to be raising the bar. The amount of quality blocking that forces you to do is not invaluable.
Yeah, and I also value the amount of time it takes to do something very meticulous, and there's a time and place for meticulous work.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it goes underappreciated.
True. I think a lot of artists focus on the polish, and that's the bar for film quality. But the ideas are just as important. Like having that idea worth polishing is essential. Like again, when you're switching gears, every project you get to, every shot you do, you get a chance to focus on a new fundamental. And I think those projects with smaller budgets that force speed, and as uncomfortable it is, great things come out of that discomfort.
Yeah, it's true. It's very true. Well, where do you go from here, man? I mean, you just won an Oscar. What's next on your plate?
I got to correct you. I didn't win the Oscar, but our movie did.
It's okay. We're going to say you won the Oscar, okay? We're here. We're proud of our local guy. You won one. Count it. Do you actually get to take? Do they give you a copy of it? Do you put one in your own?
No. I think there's 5, and for 3 of our directors and 2 of the executive producers, they all took it home. But I was lucky enough to get to celebrate with them through an amazing coincidence, by the way. I got to go to the Oscars because my wife was gifted 2 tickets to the Oscars. So it was like an amazing coincidence that I got to go at all, and it made it feel even more like we were just kids celebrating good fortune and luck. And when our team won, we got to we met up with the directors and we all went around and partied all night. It was great.
Now you're working as an animator right now, but it seems like you're getting a lot of experience to do this yourself one day, to be one of those directors or producers that eventually wins an Oscar himself.
Interesting. I like where your head's at. All right.
I'm just thinking optimistically. Is that in your brain too? Are you thinking? Do you have ideas coming like to you at times when you're kind of slow? Like you just got off vacation. That's when I have my best ideas.
I mean, this was the hardest I've ever had to work in my life. It was a pretty intense project for a long period of time. So I'm still on vacation, and I'm waiting for that. I'm looking for that, the inspiration, that motor to start running. Yeah, I know it's that kind of thing. Like as soon as I'm inching toward fully relaxed again, I'll be eager for the next project, but I'm not quite to that eager state yet.
Yeah, I here in Asheville, a lot of the projects a lot of the creative projects that come around are often passion projects, and they're very low budget. And in some cases, I take on those projects, and in some cases, I don't. And I've actually become very I don't know, picky
Yeah,
about the ones I take on
I
because
think you're right too. With passion projects, especially, it's important to be picky. Like know that the person whose passion you're chasing is someone you trust, because that can be volatile. You know.
yeah, and that's part of the problem is like a lot of times you don't know them when you go in, and so I've been building rapport with people around here, and it's very exciting to see how many creative people live in Buncombe County alone. And that doesn't even include the Hickory Market, which is actually flourishing right now, and even Bryson City is coming to its own feet, and
Interesting.
it's something very unique to see. The projects that are coming around in Asheville, a lot of them are horror, like a lot of horror
Yeah.
films.
Cool.
And so I'm like, okay, that's great. But I'm waiting for someone to come along with a really great script for science fiction. And if that happens, then I would certainly step in and be a part of that. And I'd probably donate a lot of my time. But when it comes to the work that you've done, it seems like you might be on salary. I can't tell, but how do you price yourself? I mean, how do you gauge that price point when you're doing your work?
Yeah, you're right. Salary, and that's based on the company and industry standards.
Yeah, and could you open up to our audience what those standards might be so that they can be more educated when they move into
I might be
the.
too ill informed to be specific about that kind of thing. Again, I've personally tried my damnedest to focus on the art and hope that the rest falls in place around it. That if I'm it's like I've prioritized making sure that I'm someone people want to work with,
Yeah.
and that and that's one of those things that as a professional artist is I don't think you learn enough in art school, like the learning to read between the lines and understand what people are trying to ask for and give deliver or over deliver on that. That's what everyone's looking for. Make other people's lives easier, and
Yeah,
then they'll want to work with you over and over again.
yeah, I'm learning that it's not always about what you know either. It's about who you know, and it's about sometimes, in some cases, what you have,
I mean,
like as far as equipment and skills.
I don't know if you need to know people. You need to be seen by people. So it doesn't take much for that one person to speak up and say, "I think this so and so deserves a chance," and that's kind of all it takes often. Or, and it's such a small community. People know who the ninjas are.
Yeah, I think so. And that's kind of what's happening here in town with a lot of people. The cream is rising, and you can see who they are. It's very clear.
Yeah, yeah. You stand out, be great. That's the goal. It's a competitive field, and I don't think most folks sign up for it because they expect it to be easy.
No, they don't. Okay, so is there a new film you're working on? You don't have anything in mind
Nope.
yet that you're going to be doing?
Clear,
Wow.
clear blue skies at the moment. I've learned I'm one of those people that if I know what I'm doing next, I'm an obsessive person that I will fixate on it and I'll start working on it even when I'm not working on it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a gift that I'm not taking for granted that I don't exactly know what I'm doing at the moment. So I am actually on vacation.
Okay. Well, we're gonna publish this here in the next week or two once we get approval from your group.
Cool.
And maybe someone will see you say that, and they'll say, "Hey, he's open. Let's get him before someone else does." Are you open-minded to working with other groups outside of Sony, or is that just something that you're under contract with?
I'm under contract with Sony at the moment.
Okay, and so now I'm sure they probably have various projects coming, not just one.
It's kind of a great time to be at Sony at the moment. They've got a lot of really cool projects on the horizon.
Yeah, that's great, man. That's great. Okay, I think we're at a point where we can wrap up.
All right.
I'd like to, unless you have something else you'd like to say, it's fine. You can run. I can give you a full monologue if you want.
I don't have anything burning on my chest. I was kind of just going with the flow with you on this.
Okay, well let's keep in touch, and we'll just keep following your career. And if you're ever back in the Asheville area and you just want to step in and say hello, we'd love to have you here in person.
Right on. And you're in Asheville.
I'm in Black Mountain,
Right on.
representing Black Mountain, North Carolina.
All right, right on.
Yeah. So.
Right. Yeah, I don't get home often enough, and I'm way overdue. I missed Christmas this year because our movie released at Christmas, and I kind of expected that would. I'd never been involved in a project this big that had this much marketing behind it that I had to be personally involved in so much.
Yeah.
So it was kind of eye opening to realize like how much of a machine after the movie's done is also happening. So I'm eager to get home and visit the folks.
So they do live here. They still live in Asheville.
Yeah,
That's very cool.
My brothers and sister, and parents, grandparents.
Well, they must be proud of you.
Yeah.
I bet they say you won an Oscar.
I bet they do. I bet you. I know my mom does.
That's fine.
Yeah.
The rest of the world has no idea how that works. So just run with it. Keep it.
It's kind of like it's when your team wins. We won the Oscar. Yeah, right.
Yep, that's right.
Like only so many people go home with the Super Bowl ring.
Yeah, it's true. Big shout out to my college roommate Joseph Izzo, who was also on Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, he was a producer on it. Yeah, for with Spa. I know Joe.
Yeah, he's been talking about it on social media for it feels like years. Like
Yes.
he's been working on it since he left DreamWorks back in it felt like 2015.
Yep. I think he might be back at DreamWorks again now.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know what they're doing, but something's cooking. I can tell. Yeah, it's exciting. We need new content. My daughter has watched all 7 seasons of Spirit Riding Free about 24 times, and we need a new season. Season 8. Come on, guys.
All right.
Well, thank you, Josh. I appreciate you talking to me, and I wish you the very best as you decide what you're going to do next.
Thank you. Absolute pleasure, man.
All right. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. I'm Josh Lloyd, and you're on the Ridge.